Listen Lanarkshire is a community radio station governed by the registered charity Getting Better Together Limited. Therefore, the radio station itself retains political neutrality, and any political views or comments aired as part of political discussion programming or otherwise are not the views of Listen Lanarkshire, nor of Getting Better Together Limited. The station has a set of key commitments found on the Ofcom website, and we adhere to all necessary Ofcom rules. For more information or inquiries, please contact us at radio@shotshealthyliving.com.
This program is a political discussion and commentary show. It contains robust political discussion and strong opinions. Politicians with a sensitive disposition should turn off now. The views expressed by contributors are their own and are given in a personal capacity as residents and individuals. They do not represent the views of any council, Listen Lanarkshire, or any associated organization. No council resources are used in the production of this program. Contributors who hold elected office are not speaking on behalf of their authority and are participating in a personal political capacity. This is a great show, beautiful show, big beautiful show, so big and so beautiful. These guys are great, not as great as me. Who will they offend this week?
And welcome back to What's the Point. Tonight we're diving back into the Aquatec because apparently that story refuses to sink and still has bubbles rising to the surface. It's also budget season, and Glasgow today have announced a moderate 5.9%, respectable, conservative and measured. Meanwhile, here in North Lanarkshire we're staring down the barrel of a 10% double-digit significant rise. Why, I hear you ask? Because nothing says cost of living crisis like a council tax increase, because let's no kid on about it, your calculator is definitely going to be needed next month once you start to tot up all North Lanarkshire Council's additional charges. And we'll also be asking a serious question: how exactly does North Lanarkshire Council police its own planning regulations? Who enforces them? Who checks compliance? And more importantly, who checks the checkers? And in a surprise political development this month, well, we've witnessed the return of North Korea's supreme and ultimate leader, Kim Jong-un, whereas in North Lanarkshire we have King Jong-Jim for the People's Republic of North Lanarkshire. Jim is gearing all his pawns in place for Thursday's budget meeting because our El Presidente has declared war on your pocket. So tonight I am joined by my old partner in procedural crime, Mr. Gerry Brennan. May I just make sure that I get the Mr. in there so that there's no potential any exploitation of ethical
No, he's a
standards,
private citizen, Greg. He's
Yes.
a private citizen.
As always, Gerry is a man who needs no introduction because he is the Belzy Hill bowler. And let's not kid on about it, Gerry, you are so up to date with standing orders that you could literally instruct for a free fish supper for every member in there utilising their own rules against them. Gerry, how are you?
I'm very well, Greg. And as always, it's an extraordinary pleasure to be here. And what a wonderful introduction.
Well, listen,
Very
I
grateful.
try my hardest every week to give you the proper accolades that you so rightly deserve.
Each week gets better.
Well, Gerry, again, a man who needs no introduction, but we're going to give him one anyway. He's get rid of his curfew tag for this evening. His old ball and chain has allowed him out.
Still tagged,
It's past 7 o'clock, but he has to phone in at 8:30 to check in. It is our one and only good friend, Mr. David Crichton. I'm putting that Mr. out there. I'm putting that Mr.
That's really helpful that you put it, Mister, but I need to be back for 8:30, Greg.
Is that
I
what
don't
it is?
phone in. I need to be back for 8:30.
Well, your David is a man who treats full council like a championship final. Calm delivery, perfect line and absolutely determined to knock someone else's jack out of position. Is that Bowles? That's Bowles.
That's
Bowles.
Don't encourage him. There's a wee bowler here.
Anyway, we'll be on TikTok at 8 p.m. tonight live to take your questions as always. And as I say again, I think that the planning elements might be a wee bit dry and boring for some folk, but every single resident in North Lanarkshire has been affected either by default or some route that house building has become a prevalent aspect in your local area. So we want to talk about it. We want to talk about what's been your experience when you've raised planning objections. Has the planning department of the North Lanarkshire Council took them seriously enough and handled your complaints or your objections more seriously, or is it a case that we've just fell by the wayside and just allowed developers the opportunity to come and build, baby, build? Those are the questions. So if you've not already done so, please like and subscribe on YouTube and all the other social media channels. And I think we're just about to get started then, gentlemen. Aquatec, let's do it.
So, Aquatec, we met with the group on Thursday
night.
This is the Save the Aquatec.
The Save the Aquatec group, and we met in the Roman Road Church Hall. Myself, Greg Lennon, and another guys, as a
concerned North
Lanarkshire resident, Mr. David Crichton there, as a member of the public, and myself as ward councillor, the only
ward councillor
of the 4 ward councillors who bothered to even show up.
Well, to be fair, I'm quite happy to see I went as a councillor, Gerry, as well, because it's
I didn't want to post that, Dave.
It's scary stuff, but as you know, it borders directly my own ward.
Yes, it does.
It has an impact on same number of people in my ward as probably the other 2 that borders it. So there you go.
So just for clarification, out of your ward area, there's 4 elected members at a councillor level. What's the make up of your ward?
So we have 4 councillors in my ward in Motherwell North,
who are SNP, Labour.
So there's 1 SNP. There is 1 former Labour, now an independent. This individual councillor.
That's a really sketchy situation, that one, is it not?
Councillor Andrew Duffy Lawson suspended from the Labour Party in July.
Pray tell.
And remains. So
all I can say after this length of time.
Yeah, I mean, all I can say is that from a newspaper report by the wonderful Hannah Roger, we found out.
Are you going to quote it?
I won't quote it verbatim, but I'll give you the general understanding is that he was suspended by the Labour Party for messages of a nature which they found to be unpalatable, and therefore at this point in time, 8 months on, without a word to anyone, without a word to his
That's a lengthy investigation.
It's a lengthy investigation. Yes, it is. So Andrew Duffy Lawson remains suspended from Labour Party, but an independent councillor for all intents and purposes. And the other Labour councillor in that ward is Aisha Khan, and Aisha is standing as one of the candidates for the Motherwell and Wishaw constituency.
Right,
in
so
the
MSP
upcoming
elections.
The MSP.
You would have thought that was a perfect opportunity.
Or not, because if, as we all believe, the closure of the Aquatec is a fait accompli in order to justify the construction of other buildings on that site in relation to the town vision or the town plan or the mini master plan, call it what you will, then it would not have been a very pleasant evening for Aisha to come and defend the indefensible.
Well, again, she's obviously an integral part of the Labour group in North Lanarkshire. Surely she could influence her group by saying, look, listen, there's a couple of things here. One, I'm standing for the Scottish Parliament election. This is going to hinder my campaign. But also, in addition to that, as a local ward councillor, I don't want to see the closure or the erosion of any provision in my local ward area.
No, not one so centrally located, Greg. Where the Aquatec is located is absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
It sits in that area. right where you've got safe pedestrian access
Yep.
to it, the underpass. You've got
off the precinct.
just off the
parking
precinct.
at the back.
If you were going to devise a town centre location for a leisure facility, you couldn't have chosen a better one than the Aquatec.
Well, I appreciate Andrew Duffy Lawson is currently suspended at the moment, but for all intent and purposes, he is acting as a Labour councillor still. He'll support the Labour group in relation to motions and budgets, etc. So surely he would have some element of influence within that group to try and say to his colleagues or former colleagues, look, listen, is there any chance that we can save disaster here and move away? Because ultimately he was the previous finance spokesperson. So again, he was a convener of finance.
Yep, he was.
So he knows the integral workings of how things are currently being conducted, especially in the run up to the budget. And the biggest concern that I've got is this tying to the budget. So we did a programme last week, David, where we met a couple of the key campaign people.
We did.
And we had that discussion. Now, for a considerable number of months, even going all the way back to the ACC review, Jim Loke has inadvertently tied all these things, any statement at committee, anything at all, to budget positions. Now, what do you think about that?
Can I jump in with that one?
I'm sure you will jump in regardless.
So, I did some
glasses are getting...
They're getting steamed up. They're getting steamed up.
So initially I went on to the council website, right? And it's council budget 26-27. Basically what it says in this is that even though the council has an annual budget of around £1 billion, we have forecast a budget gap over the next 3 financial years of £86 million, 85.949, with 34.638 million to be found in savings for 26-27.
Was that figure again?
34.638
For this year?
for this year.
Fair.
Now, immediately we know that not to be true,
Nonsense, yeah.
because what we're looking at this year is savings in the region of 19.3 million pounds. So these figures that are put in,
They
change.
vary constantly.
They change all
Well, then
the
again,
time.
they vary all the time for whatever newspaper's doing an article, because ultimately that's the scaremongering element of budget setting process.
and this is a very political time of year. The lead up to the budget is for things to be catastrophised, so that the SNP who are in government at Westminster and who hold the purse strings, if you like, are to be looked upon as these, miserly, centralising beasts that don't really want to fund education or roads or leisure facilities and all the rest of it. And that allows the Labour Party in North Lanarkshire to cry foul and, we're going to have to, tough decisions have to be made. We've gone through years and years of, protecting services, but now, we're at that crunch point. So
we're happy to pay consultancy fees staggeringly £4 million, and we're doing all these different things, but we're never looking at that as a budget saving option.
So that was, you mentioned one of the worrying things about the former convener of the finance and resources thing. But my big worry about that thing was that he couldn't account very well, because he wasn't able to calculate the correct amount of consultancy fees and legal advice fees that came along with that. So anyway, he put out a figure that was completely wrong, and then I had to correct him because
that's what you do.
Anyway, what we have found is that the budget figures for this year are about 19.3 million this year, 19.3 the following year, and 20, I think it's 25 the following year after that. Incredibly though, if you rise council tax by 10% and you add £760,000 for the Aquatec,
19.3.
boom, right on. So it could be as crude as that. By the way, it was as crude as that last year.
Yeah.
And we're in an election cycle, so we don't want to be frightening the herds too much. 10% increase in a closure of Aquatec, which for as far as they're concerned, it's been closed most of the time anyway, so they'll not really notice if they
David,
shut it down.
So we're going to be presented on Thursday each political grouping's budget proposals. We already know the new, and I'll put it out there, it's no Mystic Greg, I can guarantee you that's going to be a Labour budget. There is no other mathematical conclusion that can potentially...
Has there ever been in the history of North Lanarkshire Council been any other than that?
With that budget position, it's going to be a Labour budget, and no doubt we'll get the tokenistic 5-minute Tory warning where they ask for a recess and all of a sudden within 5 minutes come back in with a composited motion to do their boss's bidding. But ultimately what we're going to see is two very different motions being presented on the day. Now, the concern that I have is the Aquatec's position within those motions. Now, is the Aquatec going to be incorporated? That's the first question. Because ultimately that is, if it's no in the budget papers, it really gives them the opportunity to basically write the Aquatec off. But also in addition to that,
the SNP.
This is the bit.
This is really
so
important.
onto the SNP's aspect now is what's the SNP's tactics in this? Because I haven't seen anything credible coming from an SNP group to say we fund the savings, we're going to take it, let's say, for reserve, and we're going to put that into the Aquatec. And again, there's a whole raft of questions about the legality and whether or not there's any prohibition surrounding reserves. That the questions have been asked. But the point that would make is it disingenuous if we enter into a disingenuous process? Because like you already highlights a fait accompli in relation to the Aquatec. So what do you think is going to be the outcome?
100% is disingenuous. So let's start with the SNP first, because you mentioned that last, is that they put out this social media post, as we all know, that said we will not include this as savings in our budget motion. I'm sorry, you've never heard such a more disingenuous statement.
Although the Aquatec's currently closed at the moment.
Aye, but by very nature of saying that is that they're saying we're not actually going to do anything. We're not going to do anything to stop it. We're going to sit back. We're not going to include it. That's fine. We'll not actively want to invest or try and keep it open.
Yeah.
We'll not do anything that stops it. And then when Labour shut it down, then we'll jump the back of it for political capital, because it's leading up to May Holyrood elections. And there's never been a more disingenuous, misleading statement, in my opinion.
So who does that benefit then? Who does that benefit?
I think that benefits Claire Adamson.
Oh, her campaign for the Scottish Parliament
I think it
election.
benefits Claire Adamson at the minute, because while this sort of facade of support is there, I think it actually suits her campaign, because then she can point fingers at her opponent, Aisha Khan.
No, I think it's interesting, her statement said when it was the day, I know you went up to the march thing, so you attended the march. We showed the video footage of that last week.
And by the way, see, when I went up to it, I didn't stand in the periphery.
No,
I got right in about it, and I spoke to people.
Your footage is there for all to see, but the point I would make in this is Claire Adamson's comments where my staff attended.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sorry, if this is a prevalent issue in a local area, surely your SNP should be where you're standing.
I see the thing that gets me all this, right, that we're elected MSPs, MPs, councillors that's there, and it really doesn't matter what we think.
No.
Because you're there as
to represent your constituents.
Right, so we were asked by the constituents of Motherwell to go along. In fact, everybody was. So there's 3 councillors in my ward, 4 in yours, and 4 in the neighbouring ward, and 19 as well, which actually includes the provost.
Yeah.
Which the opportunity that he's missed is staggering. But anyway, so it really makes no difference whether I believe the Aquatec should be closed or opened, or whether Shorts Pool should be doubled in size, or what. If you're there to represent the people, and these people have made a really strong case, they're concerned on various different levels about lack of facility, generational loss of that facility, the other services that's attaching to it that people then go to, the older people that's there as well.
Right.
It really makes no difference. So they all should have been there, and they should all be making the case to say, actually, there's such a depth of feeling.
Do you not think it's telling the fact that none of these politicians attended this meeting?
Oh, absolutely.
Do you not think it's a case that for every single councillor, and we know how fame hungry some councillors are in relation to North Lanarkshire, and look at an opportunity to attend anything, it'd be there at an opening
a birthday card or normally
opening an envelope. Again, I can pick up the Motherwell Times, the day of the press, or the Wishaw Press. And I go through it, and there's about 5-6 photos of either Nathan standing at a bollard because it's just newly been placed, or it's a case that Michael McPain, in fact that reminds me,
dangerously crouching in the middle of the road.
Michael McPain's HRA budget that the Housing Committee has accepted 585 million of the HRA. I'm going to come on to that point, by the way. I think that's an interesting one for you and I. But again, the lack of local representation to stand in front of their constituents, to take their concerns on board and say, do you know what, I'm actually going to go out my way to actually represent you on this matter.
Total disregard, and the people on Thursday night didn't miss that. They didn't miss the fact that there was only 3 of us in attendance on that night, and there was an anger about it, because basically they're saying, look, we put you in this position, we expect you to be here, answer questions and offer support, and for 3 of us, in fact I'm going to say 2 because we're Motherwell based and you're not, Greg, but 2 out of 11 to attend, and they asked rightly the questions. Where's the rest? Where's the Labour people? Where's the SNP? Where's our Conservative pals?
To attend anything. I don't know many public meetings I've had in my ward area, and Michael's never attended.
So I found that, be honest, I was very angry for the people on Thursday night.
Do you think the members are tying this into the budget setting process, but do you think they're scared? I'm trying to play devil's advocate.
It shouldn't make any difference. They've still got an obligation to be there. But
again, the argument's there, innit? Do they truly represent the local communities now, or are they representing the party? That's ultimately what it's coming down to.
Absolutely.
That point was made loud and clear by members
several
who
times
attended. That it seems to be that those who are in the big parties don't want to touch this because, for whatever reason, they've been told not to. It's not by coincidence that the only elected members that appeared were independent members who are able to make their own mind up about, how they go about their councillorship. But it struck me as more than likely that they were told, don't go. Don't go because he's going, and they'll put you in an awkward position, and they will make you answer horrible questions. And you won't like it, so don't go.
Well, it's no different for the council chamber these days, is it?
Well, it is, because they use the mechanisms.
Well, they do, but I'm talking about in terms of contribution. Is that there is little or no contribution in terms of debate around issues that come up at chamber.
I never mentioned the main point I was going to, and the main point, and the thing that would give justification and maybe even qualification to an SNP position. See if the SNP came out loud and clear and said, no more hubs. We've got a capital budget of about £650 million. No more hubs.
Invest in local assets.
Invest in the Aquatec. It's there already. There's no ground acquisition. It's there. Let's repair it. Let's make it once again the flagship of our.
We did it with airdrie swimming baths. We did it with airdrie swimming baths.
Whose words are that attached to?
Jim Logue's ward, isn't it?
There's a surprise. But some of the one of the ones.
I don't know if it is. I think that's Paul's.
It's certainly neighbours.
Michael Coyle.
Michael McBride.
Right.
I think one of the things that came up as well on Thursday night was that when there was a report back in 2016, is that it estimated the repair cost at that point for the Aquatec is £435,000. Now we're being told it's anything up to £12 million to be done. So you can imagine that.
Inflation, isn't it?
Well, I asked a few questions, but also went on. There is actually a calculator, this building and construction
complexities of work
something website that you go on, and actually you can put in the cost at a selected year, ramp it forward, because they take into account materials and labour costs and all this kind of stuff. Things have gone up. You know what the figure was that they quoted that would be worth in 2026?
So the council said the figure would be around 12 million, didn't they?
Between 9 and 12 million, I think, is where the rest did eventually.
I'm going to suggest that it's not quite that, but underneath it a wee bit. So I'm going to say 7.5 million.
700,000. 700,000 is what the building and construction calculator ramped that figure up. It's estimated. That takes into, say, labour costs, inflation, construction material costs, and they ramped that forward to be around 700,000.
Simplify, again, listen, it'll not be the first time and the last time at North Lanarkshire Council is the expenditure is absolutely staggering if you think about it. But a key question in this, where do these figures derive?
Well, that's a good because you'll imagine that I then queried that. Right. So there was a structural survey engineers report done, which was the basis of some of the information that's been fed to us that's there already. And when I pursued it, I got an email back saying, yeah, that's the list of stuff that's been done. I said, well, okay, but reconcile this 9 or 12 million for me, because it doesn't sit particularly well. And it transpires that it was one officer within North Lanarkshire Council who pulled together this estimate. So it hasn't gone externally.
So it's not went out for a wider costings or a wider basis of competition in relation to what's...
All in-house.
Wow.
So you've now got the situation where in 2023 there was a procurement paper out looking for tender for consultancy fees to demolish the building 3 years ago.
Well, I need to correct you on that, right? So what the consultants, what they went out to tender for was consultants to carry out an assessment of the mini master plan, right?
Yeah.
There was a footnote at the bottom of that mentioned Aquatec as potentially being demolished
for housing.
Not as part of that not as part of the tender for that.
No.
The very fact that building back in 2023 and the timing of this is absolutely crucial. In February, now you guys get into trouble after this with the Standards Commission because of the way you articulated the way that this review, the way the review,
with the leader of the council instructing the chief executive,
the way the ACC review transpired. So council took a vote, and the vote was to instruct the chief executive to undertake.
What the nice that you skate that.
Right. But that took place in February 2023, right? The review reported back to council or to policy and strategy in September or October. I'm sure it was September. In fact, it wasn't. It was 5th October 2023, right? That report was mentioned in March. So 4 weeks after the ACC review is instructed, right? They're already talking about that. They're already mentioning
what she's going to need
demolition
beds after this. Right? He was raging the last time.
But see when the ACC review reported back, did they mention anything to elected members about demolition?
No.
Would you have known about potential demolition?
No, they went the other way and effectively said that this was only a report for noting. There was no decision to be taken. They were just presenting the facts as they saw it and the costings and everything else that was there. And there was nothing about previous notification or consideration of this.
So to come back at this point and say there's still no decision being made about the Aquatec, despite it being closed since January because we can't get the ambient heat up to the health and
yet I've had two people that were there on the Thursday evening email me separately after the meeting saying that's an absolute joke because they were forced to then attend the Bells Hill Matt Busby, and they said that it was colder at the Matt Busby Centre than it ever was within Aquatec.
So here's one of the scary things about that, right? If the Aquatec would have closed, right, as part of the ACC review before the shambles,
it would be down now. It would be completely demolished.
Guess where they wouldn't be going either. They wouldn't be going to the Matt Busby complex either because Aquatec would have been shut in year 1. Year 2 was Matt Busby. So Matt Busby would be closed now. So see all you guys who are in the Bells Hill Sharks, all you guys who go to swimming lessons up at that pool, all you people that work in that pool, all the people that work in the gym, my daughter for example, all her pals, all the young, old, middle-aged people that use that facility, that would have been shut. and there would be nothing in place
Do
for
you think we're trying to scale this back to potentially just 3 swimming pools across the authority? Is that what we're aiming for? One in Wishaw, one in Coatbridge and one in Airdrie?
Well, they've got another couple. They've still got one at Shotts here
But again,
Kilsyth.
and Kilsyth.
it's constant chat and rumour always is that it's facing closure, but so...
Well, it
So,
is.
what we do know is that local authorities across the UK do not want to have wet leisure facilities. They don't want
Even
wet.
though the health benefits and various other things, especially for the elderly.
So what's gone wrong, I think, is that across the UK, the officer class across the UK have become economists.
Oh, right.
With
Adding to that.
this is my perspective. They become economists where everything is an accounting unit, and if it doesn't wash its face financially, then it's of no particular value. It's not worth it.
business.
And this is the issue.
was,
This came out loud and clear
Came
at
out
the
the
meeting.
Thursday. Yeah.
Business.
That public services is not about providing a profit.
Yeah.
The social return on the investment, there's been a lot of research done in this down
Well, it's
south.
significant.
It's for every £1 that's invested back, you get a social return on the investment of about £4.35.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
And
it's
you-
not even that. It goes back into...
But you need to manage it. You need to manage the asset,
If
Greg.
you think about it, right, so we're going through a process of exponential house building across the authority. Everybody has been attracted to North Lanarkshire to come and reside. And really, in effect, what do we want for our authority? What kind of services are we looking for? Are we looking for services that are going to continue to provide for our kids and our families into the future? Or is it a case that, do you know what, it's going to get to a stage where we've depleted that much, there's no more local assets, you've got a big community hub that's going to service nearly, goodness knows, 20,000-30,000 people locally in an area that's going to be very hard to get any access to. But what is the point of moving to North Lanarkshire then?
Where would you go to access from your
Well,
location?
we've shut. There was only ever a gym up my way, and it's called the Ian Nicholson Centre, and they've already shut that. That's planned for closure. So the idea is they've moved everything to Christen Hub, and in the Christen Hub, that's where it's going to
Well,
be.
you've got a pool in. You'll have a pool in there.
Oh, absolutely not. No, we don't have any pool in the Northern Corridor. Nothing like that. Unless there's something in Kilsyth.
A track? Have you got a track in it?
So no, so it can do a comparison to Airdrie, because Airdrie, my goodness, if you look at Airdrie and the level of investment that's been placed
The
in
riches, Greg, the riches of Airdrie.
But the riches of Airdrie come for the riches of Gartcosh and Glenboig and Moodiesburn. There's nearly 3,500 houses that's been built in my ward area. Again, for years, Section 75 was stipulated that this to build new schools and all the rest of this kind of stuff. But Section 75 legislation clearly dictates that, in fact, it's going to be spent in a local ward area.
So
we've not seen any level of investment in comparison to Airdrie. It seems to me, and maybe this is where I'm wrong, I'll happily be corrected, but again, it seems to me the level of investment that's coming for my ward area into the council's main pot or whatever it may be is just absolutely...
people need to know what Section 75 money is. So there's an element of the planning system. It's called planning gain, right? So when you're building for the future, developers will have to pay a cost.
Yeah.
So if for example you want to build 500 houses, right?
Yeah.
Then you will need to make a contribution.
That's correct.
A Section 75 contribution towards either housing or education, depending on what it is. So the latest one is the housing development in Moss End, New Stevenson, across from the mosque, where 432 new properties are to be built, and the Section 75 contribution is to go on schools, right? So that's what that means.
Here's the bit, though. It doesn't necessarily mean under Section 75. There's other aspects to this, ENV2s and this kind of stuff, right? Where money's siphoned off of that Section 75 to make sure there's going into local investment. And this is a lovely segue right back to the Aquatec. So,
I know.
I'm glad you've hung about with me long enough. So the bit that I would highlight here is again within that aspect of Section 75, that developer contribution coming back into a local area. Surely there's enough development that's taking place in Motherwell, to be able to support and sustain the investment into the Aquatec. So you have two key categories in that: informal and formal sport. Now, swimming pool is a formal sports complex. That is ultimately what it is. There will be sharks and various other things, these typical groups that go out there, train, compete, and various other things in relation to swimming competitions and all these different things. So you could go down two potential routes: informal and formal sport. There has to be a fund generated under the Section 75 capital to be able to put that into. Why are we not seeing that? Why are we not seeing that as a potential option?
The one thing that gets me as well is that the week before, last week...
And by the way, I could be completely wrong. It's different terminology in North Lanarkshire, so El Presidente will take great delight in telling me you've just made that up. But haven't they? Because ultimately Section 75 legislation is quite clear.
Yeah, I don't know about the intricacies of the plan, and I'll be quite honest, but there was an independent housing report come out, and it basically labelled Motherwell, and I think it was in the UK, I might be wrong, but it was certainly in Scotland, as the most, I'm going to say, housing efficient in terms of people want to live there for what you got for value for money in terms of your property.
Especially the football team these days as well. They're
phenomenal football team, absolutely. Phenomenal football team. Europe here we're coming, but that's a different story. So on one hand you've got these external kind of reports saying Motherwell, pound for pound in terms of efficiency, if you like, of buying the house that you're going to get in terms of property. And then on the other hand, you've got the council who is making decisions to remove the facilities. And you're right, key facilities within Motherwell. So Aquatec goes, there is nothing.
Nothing to replace it.
Nothing within Motherwell. Motherwell's the third largest, I think. So you've got Cumbernauld is the most densely populated. Then you get Airdrie Coatbridge. Then you get Motherwell. And what we're basically saying is that you've removed any leisure facility, sports facility, health facility from Motherwell.
Do you think the problem lies for us? Do you think there's an opportunity for division within North Lanarkshire? Because ultimately, if you look at Glasgow's a city. Edinburgh's a city. Aberdeen is a city. Get to North Lanarkshire, it's pockets, towns and villages and that kind of thing. That's obviously where the opportunity resides, in my opinion, for centralised dictation.
I used to live in Midlothian, right? A tiny wee local authority. Tiny. And the facilities that they have is enviable. Whether it's Last Wade, and I know I've spoken about the Last Wade hub and the St David's hub with big pools and myriads of football pitches and green space around about it. All within short distances of places like Newton Grange and Gourdbridge and Dalkeith and Bonnyrigg and all. Do you know what I mean? Yep. They're all within striking distance, and then you look at us, who Midlothian pales into, when you look at the size and scale.
So where did the hub project come? Because every time it seems to be the predisposition of we must have this hub
It's
strategy.
absolutely bizarre.
It's dry.
I don't understand it.
It's not even about. It's not even about the quality of the service that's within it. It's dry. It's cheap to run, and it doesn't. There's no revenue. There's no revenue cost. I'm not saying there's not. There's none. But there's much less revenue cost. Whereas if you've got a pool, you've got plant, you've got chemicals, you've got staff.
I understand, but
all of that.
If you follow that through, you're effectively. We've all got into air for a swim. It's like
the rumour mill's been rife for years as well, as about the potential. The Civic Centre shutting down, and obviously headquarters of North Lanarkshire Council potentially moving to Eurocentral and all these kind of things. So there's all these kinds of rumours. But if you're transferring your headquarters from Motherwell, then obviously if you're building these hubs with office spaces and various things, well, you could just deploy your services within the hubs. The more hubs you've got, the better, because then you've not got the problem of having to house them in fancy new buildings.
So what's the cost of a hub? I take it we've got a template hub.
Depends on the size of it.
Hub. If it's a town hub, that's a major one. So you're looking at it in between, I think it's 80 and 120 million.
Yeah, I think they said about 60 million for the smaller ones. I think that the Orbiston one was about 60 million.
But you just tie the schools into that. Now the question, the real question I have is, and again, this is something in relation to this model, and whether I'm right or I'm wrong, I'm still to be convinced. But if I'm going to use the gym during the day, do I want to walk through a primary school playground to go and use the gym? Do I want to do that, or is it a case that I'm going to get access at night, or if I want to play football there? What is the access points, or these different kind of things? And I think these are legitimate questions. I know they've been raised with me in countless occasions, and again, you're doing away with gyms and various other things that are already long standing in an area. Now, I'm all for investment, absolutely 100%. I'll never argue against investment, but if you're not investing in the buildings that you've already got that are there, then it's a bit bizarre.
I was over at Riverbank, right, because my boy was playing football over at the pitch.
This is the new one in
Cambro, right?
Yeah.
So I'm over at the pitch now. I'll be charitable. It was a god awful day. It was chucking it down.
Yeah.
And I'm watching the game, and he used the toilet, and I went into the new hub. It's like Mary Celeste, not a soul in it. Nobody using it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, so what are these spaces being used for at the weekend?
I don't know. But again, interesting one as well.
I just thought they would have been heaving with different dance groups.
Community board meeting a couple of weeks back. In our community board meeting, against a mismatch, it's Northern Corridor, so it goes all the way up to kind of like Auchinlock, and then all the way down into Glenboig and that kind of stuff. And the biggest criticisms that were coming was in relation to the Christen Hub. And that is a new hub that's all singing or dancing. It was being built as part of the primary school, various things like that. And I looked at every single kind of community group that was representing the area and that kind of thing at that meeting. Nobody had a good point or a good positive word to say in relation to the hub. That so much so the hub people were actually in attendance trying to sell, going to come along and use the hub. And you're going, well, if this is the model that we're now pinning all your hopes on, then how successful is it going to be, especially at the back of closure of Aquatec? Don't want to dwell too much longer on this, but one last point I would say, I was staggered to find out that the Aquatec's been shut completely
since January.
Since January. And there's been no attempt by any elected member to either launch that campaign or get a campaign on the go in regards to getting the funding that's required for it.
So
what was the total figure? Sorry, I'm jumping ahead of myself. What was the total figure for full refurbishment of the pool again?
40 million.
And that's based on an officer's estimate?
That's based on an internal assessment by NLC officers. As I understand it, it's an officer who has experience around pool provision.
That was the written response that we got back.
You've got to imagine, because there is a number of pools, you've got to imagine that.
So with the budget setting process, no doubt, again, that our El Presidente will tie this decision to a budget decision. So if you don't make that saving in there, and you've no asked the officers to go through that menu of savings to try and find that capital investment, one thing that I know for a fact is going to happen at some point, because he's done it with a countless number of issues, is he'll tie it to, well, if you find that money, what services are you cutting?
We're not cutting a service, it's capital. It's capital investment. What we want to do is cut money out of that.
So where would you take that? Would you take that for your hub model?
Take it for your hub model, absolutely. Take it for your hub model. Get that building re-established, the jewel in the crown of North Lanarkshire.
Well, interesting.
Owned by us as well, fully by us. Not like a regional, not like a regional centre where it's a centre of excellence, if you like Ravenscraig.
I'm sorry, that's a bent no wall there.
Joint. No, I mean that's a great service. That's a great service for what it is, but it is not. It's not a locality-based service.
No, it's not.
It's not. So,
sorry, I was just going.
Bellshill needs its own. Motherwell needs its own, Wishaw needs its own, Airdrie needs its own, Coatbridge needs its own, Shotts needs its own, and Kilsyth needs its own. God love View Park, it's absolutely bugger all.
Yeah.
But these services need to be retained in localities.
Yeah, I totally agree.
You might be able to ask this, but the Bellsy Hill oracle over here is that we recently got an email sent out, was that within the budget setting process there now seems to be the provision of £10 million as a one-off capital investment that's been made available.
It's 20 for Motherwell.
No, that's the UK fund. I'm talking effectively from within is that their finance officer effectively said that there's a £10 million amount of money that has appeared for investment, and you think, okay, let's start looking at that in terms of there's 760,000 a year to repair or the running costs of Aquatec. Why are we not starting to look at doing some of that 10 million to preserve the facilities that's here?
You just answered your own question. You highlighted it yourself there as well. There's £20 million sitting in Motherwell. It was a big announcement for the Labour government that £20 million is coming to North Lanarkshire, it's coming to Motherwell.
Well, that's over 10 years, but then
it doesn't
they
matter
could
if it's
leverage
over
that
10
quite
years.
happily.
That's what I was going to say. You could borrow on the basis there.
And take it for your reserves.
Yeah, take it for the reserves, pay it back over the next 10 years and then put the money back. Why not
By the
do
way,
that?
Let's not pretend that good services can't wash their face financially.
Yeah.
But see if the Aquatec was a well-maintained, attractive place to be, where you've got, skating rink, pool, breakout places for gyms, for badminton, for dance groups, for health groups, cafeteria, for example. You've got employment, you've got wellness services, you've got fitness services. That generates its own income.
Here's the bit for me. North Lanarkshire Leisure sent all members this evening an email, and I've seen the email in regards to an increase in membership. Now again, if it's a case that you're looking to increase the membership figures and various other things like that, then surely that increase in membership, you could maybe siphon that for the top and invest that into the Aquatec. I know that I wouldn't want to be paying more if it's a case that I'm getting less opportunity to go to.
I'll forget about this one. I'll forget about this one, so I need to say it, right? Here's what's so perverse, right? Right now, what is it that North Lanarkshire Council are tooting all over the place about? The success of
golf.
Yes. Right? Success of Palace Rig.
Yep.
The success of Lockview.
Well, they highlighted under the ACC review, they were in scope for
what would have
closure.
happened to these services that they're now photo opportunities? They can't wait to get onto social media and get their big ball faces and photographs to say how well it's doing.
It is.
They would have been shut.
Yeah.
They would have been gone by now.
So, moving on for the Aquatec, because I think we've covered that. And the good people, North Lanarkshire, will be able to see all this unfold and what's there and what isn't there on Thursday, because we've got a budget meeting on Thursday at 4 p.m. Is it
prediction? 4 o'clock, right?
4 o'clock.
What's your prediction?
My prediction is it's a Labour compensated budget with the Tories, or perhaps Jim might flex his political muscle and just take the independent vote. So the independent support, scrap the Tories, scrap the SNP, then you have an independent Conservative, because the Lorraine Nolan was the one that put forward the motion, so there might have to be a bit of distancing coming for the Tories.
But the
SNP's one's going to be interesting, because it'll probably be the most disingenuous budget proposal ever.
It already is.
Yeah.
What that motion was, see that the Lorraine's motion?
Yeah.
As I understand it, right, Lorraine's motion was not to reopen.
No, it wasn't. I've spoken to Lorraine.
It was to ensure that Jim Logue,
yes,
our president, maintained the promise that he made to the people of North Lanarkshire that it would not close within this council term, and that would mean that, as a bare minimum, it would be open until May 2027. Now, my prediction is that one of the budget saving lines in the Labour motion to council on Thursday is that they will save on a recurring basis the £760,000 from Aquatec, and that means that on Friday morning they'll be up there with chains and padlocks, and that place will be shut.
I think,
and it'll be demolished before you know it. And the flats,
so that there's no opportunity for any campaign to be launched.
Absolutely.
I would agree with that.
I don't think there'll be a Labour-Tory composite. I think Labour plus the paid followers,
other suspended members,
the other suspended members and paid followers, will be sufficient to carry that through. But then we had this before the Rutherglen by-election. Is our wonderful leader come in and he's white steed and reversed.
There will be no cuts to facilities.
Is there any chance, do you think, that this is big enough?
No.
That
because it's not impacting on English Labour.
and it's no impacting
Not
on
impacting
Airdrie.
Westminster or
Yeah.
Or the
Airdrie.
Airdrie. Say Airdrie. There's no impact on Airdrie, so Jim's plain sailing. He's not
Well,
going to get any local
the people that attended the
issue.
meeting last Thursday will not forget it. We know that for a
Well,
fact.
they should be voting with their feet then.
Yeah.
The next thing is the 10% rise for me. Do you think that's fair, given the fact that we're seeing deleted services, depletions in service? We're talking about facility closures now. We're talking about all these different things. 10%. Would you be happy?
Did you
with
feel
10% rise?
Did you feel the benefit of the 10% last year, Greg?
No, I did not. No.
No. I
And
don't
it was
see-
more than 10%, by the way, because see when you had
You
the
had the
bin
brown-
charge.
brown
Yeah,
bin
it was
charges.
slightly
It was-
above
yeah.
that. That's right. But you look at 10%. I mean, to be fair, that was set realistically for 3
Last year.
years.
Yeah, it was set last year.
And nobody really, well, I think we did, but nobody really understood.
But surely
or-
there's
or
other
clocked
places to get £19.3 million in savings. I keep going on about this all the time. Look at the various departments.
18.5.
Or 18.5, I apologise, but if you look at it, 18.5 million, you could look at various services within the council where there clearly is.
Well, you could
wastage.
stop
could-
paying external consultancy
Well, that's-
fees
that
and
was the
save
next
yourself
point
4
I
or
was
5
going-
million.
That's the
You
next
know,
point
it's
I
like,
was going- There's a starting point, by
of course
the way.
it is.
There's a starting point.
Yeah.
So why are we looking to increase that, especially in a time of cost of living?
You can stop
Crisis.
awarding retiring chief officers
Oh,
hundreds of thousands of pounds into their pension pot. That would be a start.
is that no 1.15 million?
That would be the 1.15
That one
billion
that was
over.
in the press.
That was the one that was in the press.
Yeah.
Paul Hutchins' story.
I think Tom Gordon also
Tom
picked
Gordon.
it up.
That's right. And
There was 2 or 3 commentaries on it.
I am surprised that more hasn't been made of that,
I can't
because
believe
I
there's
think that I think that is doesn't smell good at all.
Well, there's no
Well,
evidential
listen,
justification.
I'm actually getting a wad of emails coming in the new in relation to the Aquatec, by the way.
I'm not surprised.
Going to the elected members' emails. Listen, I think that's really, really important. Continue to write to your elected members. One thing councillors can't stand is when loads and loads of people bombard their inbox. So I would highly recommend that anybody at all with an issue in Motherwell in particular, who has an issue or a grievance with regards to the Aquatec potential closure, then write to your elected member and demand the fact that you're to be represented. Because all this nonsense, I just don't know how people are accepting it. See, if this was my ward there, I'd be getting hold of all the coals. I'd be getting absolute hold of all the coals. So, anyway, 10% council tax rise. Is this going to sit well? Do you think it's going to sit well with folk when the Scottish Parliament election bounces round? Because 10% just to make up for this magical black hole that continues to arise every year in Big Jim's eyes. If you remember last year or the year before, it was like 35 million, and then that jumped to 65 million.
Well, you've got to look at, because the argument's going to be, and Labour will stand up and they'll give it the same stuff, that it's the SNP, Holyrood government that don't give them enough money, blah, blah, blah.
I'm fed up.
And then you'll get the SNP
nonsense.
shooting back, and you'll spend 10 or 15 minutes listening to absolute diatribe of nothingness that's there. But if you've got other local authorities that can get it down to 5 and 6% that's there,
South
they-
Lanarkshire,
they
6.
all face the
6.
same challenges. It's not that in fact, North Lanarkshire, if you look at their accounts, are probably stronger financially
Yeah, 280 million in reserve.
than both Glasgow and South Lanarkshire, and certainly the vast majority. And yet we're going to be possibly one of the highest council tax rises at a time of cost of living crisis,
Housing emergency,
housing emergency,
energy emergency.
removal of facilities, and people will reach a tipping point if they're not already there.
Yeah.
And I think it's bold or stupid, one of the two, that you would pin yourself to a double-digit rise in council tax 3 months before
Do you know what?
Holyrood
Do
elections.
you think the SNP will come out if Labour does potentially? Listen, we don't know, but we know there's a benchmark there in relation to the 10%, because they've already said for the next 3 years going to be a 10% each year annual rise. But do you think the SNP will play it as daft as they did the last time and come out at 9.99999%?
I think it'll be 9.9998.
Oh,
This
do you think
year.
they're going to try and
They'll
steal
put clear blue water between. I'll tell you what was interesting today. I don't know if either of you picked it up. I watched Dumfries and Galloway's council shenanigans every now and again, and there was a councillor on there who's been a councillor for about 19 years, he said, and he's just sick to the back teeth of everything that's going on. He says that when I was first elected 19 years ago, we had a member-led council, and now I'm sick to the back teeth. We've got an officer-led council where members are basically shunted into the background, and the programmes that have been brought forward are not member-led programmes, they're officer-led programmes. And I think the point that he was trying to make is that the officer class are professionals, so they want to be selling their wares. They want to be able to say, here's my CV, as they move up either the size of the local authority that they look after, or they move on to bigger projects, or into the corporate world, or into the Scottish Government, perhaps. But I think I have got sympathy with that elected member, because I didn't participate that much in how we devised these town and community hubs, the projects.
It's not even that, it's the budgets as well. If you look at it's a menu you get as an elected member with savings that they're proposing. Officers.
It comes from officers.
It's not elected member led, so I can't turn around and say, give me 20% of your saving within that department.
And to make things worse, in North Lanarkshire Council, there are decisions that take place, and I set this out at the meeting the other night. There's budgetary impact decisions into the millions that officers, through delegated authority,
Well, it's clearly political decisions.
but the authority that's been given to them over the years by the Labour group, mostly because they've always carried the whip hand. But it means that you and your guys as councillors won't even see that money.
No.
You won't be advising it. You won't see it in a report.
No.
You won't be asking for your views on it. And in that respect, I think there's too much power.
There's a question for you. Again, the administration changes the morale. The poor North Lanarkshire have had enough of Labour and Jim Logue and decide, what, we want this changed, and they don't vote for them. So a change in administration, do you think a change in administration would effectively look at delegated authority and take power back for elected members? I couldn't see that happening.
I've been asking for it for
Couldn't see
2
it
years.
happening. I couldn't see it happening.
I've said this before, it absolutely astounds me.
Because the status quo has to prevail, because they've had it easy, so why would the next bunch no look to make it easy for themselves? Because then that way you have to actually really think about services. You need to
That's exactly
look at things. And
all of a sudden there would be a whole group having to they need to learn to speak. That's
one of the biggest problems they've got
they
right
need to be
away.
involved in a whole set of process that I don't think they're involved in just now. They need to be able to find out what the word scrutiny actually meant.
Yeah.
David.
Sorry, carry on.
See the people in North Lanarkshire. We spoke earlier on about the exit payments that were made to the two senior officers that were early retirement sort of thing. They walked away.
Yep.
And their pension pot and all the rest of it was upwards of 1.15.
You boys did.
£1,000,000.
I don't want it incorporated into that standards complaint. You boys did.
You didn't know it. You weren't told about that. Elected members were not told about that.
No.
All of that was done covertly. All of that was done in the background without my knowledge, your knowledge. So when councillors read that in the paper, that was the first time they knew about it, because officers were not obliged.
No, it was in their accounts, but when I was
but they weren't even obliged to bring it to elected members for scrutiny.
Yeah.
So you'd no opportunity to say, "Oh, wait a minute here." What's
I
going
wonder
on?
the Labour administration we don't get any opportunity anyway to question
What would be
anything.
really
You're lucky if you
interesting-
get one question and a supplementary.
And
Maybe murder.
I don't know how many people are listening to this.
Thousands.
If there's more than the usual 6.
Thousands.
But there must be somebody out there that's a North Lanarkshire Council employee that has looked to retire early, and for whatever reason that's given to them have been refused early retirement. If there is somebody out there, I'd really like you to contact me, because I'd like to be able to understand the comparison of the grounds that you've been refused your voluntary early retirement to that has been put forward as a means to allow this early retirement for the 2 senior officers that left, and it cost the council.
But we've changed the rules now.
Well,
We've changed the rules. The
they've
rules
only
have
changed a part of the rules. You're right. They have indeed
So
changed.
although there was
part of
nothing wrong with what they did,
Yes, there was.
although there was nothing unlawful with what they did,
No.
We've closed that particular door so that nobody else can achieve or benefit to the same.
That particular door was closed on the basis that if you didn't know what this, and I'll not go into it, but the pension rule of 85 is that if it's not there and it's not in your forefront of your mind, then people will not question it. Because if you actually questioned it, and that piece of protection legislation was applied to this scenario, is that the council at worst could have saved hundreds of thousands of pounds rather than this £1 million that it's cost taxpayers money to have 2 people retire on enhanced benefits. So again, if there's somebody out there, North Lanarkshire Council employee, looking to retire early and has been refused, I'd really love to hear from you as to why.
One more point. Did we follow the public pound in this circumstance?
In what respect?
That's our job.
Of course
job
it is.
as elected members.
Of course it is.
Those officers of the council are responsible for following the public pound.
Yeah.
And
that's all we've done.
Well, on that
And
note,
we-
ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back after these couple of quick songs, and then we're straight on to TikTok. And again, just a wee reminder, if you get the chance, going on to YouTube, Facebook, or other social media, especially TikTok, give us a wee like and a follow. We'll be back after these short songs. Hello and welcome back to What's the Point? Well, they were 2 good song choices, gentlemen. Hell's Bells and What's the Name of the Game? That sums North Lanarkshire Council up in a nutshell.
I
and
agree.
I was going to do my Alan McCoist impersonation there. Hell's Bells. I've not heard that in years. But anyway, back to it. So, before we kind of cut for a break, and welcome to everybody on TikTok. Thank you very much. Please give it a wee like and a share. And
Just before you go any further, can I just...
any donations you want to fire our way as well, just fire them and on.
There's a friend of mine, a neighbour, who stopped me in the street last week because he actually listens to it and he watches on TikTok. So Ian, if you're watching this when you get a chance to see the recording, I've given your feedback to the man in the chair, and the feedback was, tell the big fella to shut up, Mayor.
You better stop it, Gerry. Tell you, it's all about you.
So Ian, your message has been delivered, my friend.
What was it Kenny Duffy says to me? This is not your show, Councillor Lennon.
But Provost, surely we go to the end of the point of order to see whether or not.
I've got the point of orders in front of me, Councillor Lennon.
No, but allow me to make the point of order.
Councillor Lennon, see if we're going to have a conversation that requires you
Provost,
to be quiet
46.
and me to speak.
Provost,
it doesn't require you to
standing
speak
order
over me.
46.
This isn't your show, Councillor
never asked
Lennon.
for that,
This is a
Provost.
members' meeting.
Ooh, you're hard showing off.
This is not your show.
I can't wait to use that.
This is not your show, Kenny Duffy.
And if I was still on committees in my other life as a councillor,
You off committees?
I'm off every committee. I'm disenfranchised at the moment in my other life.
Critical point to those at home, and I think again what we were kind of talking about before we shut for a wee break there, especially those joining us on TikTok. 10% council tax rise. How do you feel about it? We want to hear from you. Is this something that you think is fair and balanced, or is it a case that North Lanarkshire Council is just charging you more money for the sake of charging you more money, and really in effect it's going to have an impact on you and your family? We would love to hear from you. Also, in addition to that as well, the Aquatec closures, potential closures I should put out there, is that going to impact you?
It is closed.
Well, again, I can't say that, but
It is
again,
closed.
the point for me here is that going to impact you, and do you think that's a fair position for the North Lanarkshire budget to be entwined with the Aquatec closures? Right, let's move on. So, you were wanting to say something? Have you said
I
that?
was. No, it was just to shout out to Ian effectively that was involved. And I suppose the other thing was that, and it just very briefly in terms of that pension stuff that we finished off on, is that ultimately these kind of decisions rest and will rest with what they call the pension ombudsman.
The pension ombudsman?
It has far-reaching powers in terms of revoking decisions if they feel that they haven't been taken.
Do you think there's any similarity with the pensions that happened in North Lanarkshire to Glasgow?
No.
No?
No, I'll tell you why. Right. In Glasgow, it seems to be that officers operated themselves without the knowledge of any elected member. So there was no leader of the council having oversight over the pension exit payments that were made, and it was only when the Chief Executive Officer of Glasgow City Council decided to engage Brodie's. I'm sure it was Brodie's solicitors
I
to
think
carry
it was
out.
the council leader that instructed
No, it
that.
was Susan Aitken. It was the
Yep.
council leader.
Yep.
It was a council leader who decided that she was unhappy about that, and it was only because Brodie's became interested in it
Yeah.
that it became national news. Now, you might expect that the leader of North Lanarkshire Council would do something similar.
He must do it.
So the question is,
Must do it.
why not?
Yeah, he must do it.
So, and I think the amounts per ex-employee were less. Sorry, Greg wants my lovely face to be included in this
So
TikTok.
that makes it easier.
He's
My
the only
goodness,
one.
a rogues
He's the only
gallery.
one.
Have you seen the Photoshop I'm going to do later on, by the way? Those two are
But
going
yeah,
to
it's a good question. Why, David?
Yeah. Why has
Mr.
an
Leader,
investigation?
no. Yeah.
Because Jim's aware of it. I've emailed Jim Logue 3 times and he's refused to respond, which is really disappointing.
Funnily enough, I sent an email out, Gerry, you and I sent an email out earlier last week, tail end of last week, inviting all elected members, the 77 councillors in North Lanarkshire, to come on the podcast because we wanted to talk about the decisions currently being held. Aquatec, the
There's
budget.
an empty seat here,
There's an empty
waiting.
seat for any elected member, but they all seem dead scared to come on and join us. I don't know why. But again, particularly we want to hear for the group leaders, because I think that we slate Jim every week. We've done odes. Remember the odes that we used to do? We used to do the ode to Jim Logue. We used to try our hardest to get him even just to listen and come on the show, and never once has he came on. So that invitation's always open. But
In
Councillor
fairness-
Carragher is the leader of the SNP group. She's had countless invitations onto the show. Sandy Watson, leader of the Conservatives, again,
Come on down.
come on down. So, just putting that point out there. But anyway, gentlemen, sorry.
And in fairness, Greg, we have been, although we make fun, right, of
Oh, but respectful.
the president, we are always respectful of the skills that he has as a political operator.
A mover and a
Because you
shaker.
can say what you like about
A
Jim
mover
Logue.
and a shaker.
Jim Logue has got longevity, and he has found a way to masterfully make his way around
Yeah.
political life in North Lanarkshire for a long period of time.
Call it the payroll, Gerry. Pay your opposition and you'll never challenge.
Still takes.
I don't really think that takes rocket science to
Still
work
got
out.
to manage it, Greg. We've still got to
But
manage
anyway, okay, let's move on. Planning. Now, every aspect of North Lanarkshire is affected by our planning. All new built houses. We spoke earlier on about Section 75. We spoke about all these different things. If you look in my general vicinity, the Northern Corridor, my goodness, I think we've got about 70-80% of the entire house building programme just sitting in our geographic area in comparison to other areas within the authority.
it. One would imagine you would get the lion's share.
Oh, we get hee-haw. But anyway, so within that, what I've had is, for the last number of years, especially when major developers come into an area, and we had a conversation earlier, David, you were
Yep.
saying
Yep.
about potentially 350 homes being built in your ward area, and basically the developer comes in and completely ignores, in some instances, or perhaps just administratively fails to adhere to planning regulations. What authorities do our council go over those developers? What do you think it is?
Well, it's interesting because I posed that point to 2 officers within the last 24 hours, because that development is for 610 houses actually. So it's a huge
Is that
development.
the one
this
in
day.
Overton?
Yeah, just on the outskirts of Wishaw. So you're looking at a massive development that's on Greenbelt land, but will not go down that way. So it went all the way to the Scottish ministers, and the decision basically came back and said, yep, crack on, you can go for it. So that was a number of years ago. But we're now at the stage that they're developing the site. And on the perimeter of that site has always had hedging and trees on the main road. And yet you drive past there 2 days ago and a significant section of that is gone. And you think, okay, who's responsible? Who gave the permissions for that? Why is there a need for them to remove trees that are on the outside of the perimeter of the development? And who's going to pick it up? who's going to do something about it? So the questions have been asked, but you don't fill me with an awful lot of confidence, because I spoke to you about that earlier.
Well, the question comes down to, does your planning authority have any planning enforcement, Gerry?
This is I'm going to speak politically now, right? Local authorities across Scotland do very little in terms of enforcement of planning conditions. And when I've spoken to officers in both North Lanarkshire and in other local authority areas where I've had cases in the various different jobs that I do, the approach that's taken is not necessarily one of enforcement that you would imagine. So it's if there's a planning condition applied and it's not fulfilled within a certain time scale, the planning authority will work with the applicant or the developer to rectify that. So there's always, it's almost like what we do is we negotiate a workaround rather than an application of the conditionality that was part of the planning decision. And in that sense, you could argue that they don't do that much, or you could argue that they get more out of adopting a partnership approach.
Yeah, well,
Does that make sense?
No, it does make sense, because I mean that particular development as well attracts £3,400 pounds per supposedly as a
Section 75 money.
Yeah. So that supposedly is going towards education, and not all of it will go towards education, I don't think, for a second. But there's a new high school that's been built there less than probably 5 years old. And even when they reach the halfway point of this development, is that if a percentage of that goes towards that high school and local primary school, it's already over capacity.
Yeah.
And you start to think, well, what do you do with that? Because there is no facility just to add on extra buildings. So you've got to tell me that they've spent
It's your community hub model.
tens of millions of pounds.
Well, think about it, and I'm not being cynical, but again, I would imagine if it's a case that you build a community hub and the hub isn't actually that well used, and you need to do an extension of the school for when all this additional new people will move into an area.
But there doesn't seem to be any physical space to be able to do that.
Well, you can remove the community aspects of it and build classrooms. You can take the gym out, you can take the community hall out, you can take these different things out, and then the classrooms can expand.
Well, I'm not convinced of the layout of that, because I've been in the school, but you might well be right. But it seems absolutely ludicrous that planning permission has been granted and actively now starting it's there, and it's going to put that school that's recently finished under extreme pressure right from the word go in terms of its capacity levels, and other local primary schools, actually, not just the ones that are closest to that particular development. But my most recent gripe was about the removal of trees. I was thinking, absolutely no reason that I can see that perimeter trees that are not within the development have been removed.
You can guarantee that as part of that planning application there will have been an assessment of the
environmental impact assessment.
So you would need to go back to the papers and see what was agreed.
Right. Well, the only trees that I can see referred to is further, not the perimeter trees that were there, but there are trees within the middle of the development that's there, because it's green belt land and it's the edge of the Clyde Valley, as you would expect, and there was particular protection around those trees. But these are perimeter trees that are out with the development, that sit right on the main road and have just been cleared.
Well, I'm really interested to hear for the folks at home and TikTok and various other platforms that are listening this evening. Have you put forward planning concern at any point? I know the Orchard Braes was a big thing as well. Again, people obviously put forward objections, but the key point that I would make here is when a development's already approved and that development process starts. So I can give you an example from my ward area. We had a major developer build on a site and they incorporated in an emergency access road. And that emergency access road was no longer being used for emergency vehicles, it was being used for the delivery of HGVs and various things like that. So they were using it to be able to prop up or use it as an additional route into the building site for their commercial vehicles. Now, the issue in that is especially when it's tied to another estate or a housing nearby, kids playing in the street and HGV trucks are basically driving up, utilising that access point. And the reason I think that's an important question tonight is when it comes to planning enforcement, because Gerry, you and I have done a wee bit of work on this in the past. Planning enforcement is practically non-existent in our authority, which is absolutely staggering to think. Now, I would love to think every developer is acting with absolute sort of professional clarity. They know exactly what they're doing as they move into an area and start to develop. But ultimately what we see is planning enforcement never ever been taken. Why do you think that would be?
Honestly, I can't wait to get the response back. I'll be perfectly honest, because there's no logic to some of these decisions, but certainly these ones about the trees that just upset me. Let's say and there doesn't seem to be any justifiable reason for this.
Well, there's another.
It's a great point, by the way. We spent what we do on parking enforcement, on planning enforcement. What a team we would have.
Is that from TikTok? Is it?
From TikTok, yeah.
So one of the latest things that I've become aware of is North Lanarkshire, after 2 years of research, have developed a coal gas mining tool, and that's to help identify and assist with development of if you want to build on land where there's coal gas emissions sort of thing. And I'm aware of an individual who has put an application in to put an extension on their house in an area that's it's been up for 60, 70 years, and they've been advised that they need to provide one of these coal gas risk assessments, and that's part of the conditionality of getting the building warrant. They can't get one done because nobody does them. Nobody does them in a residential capacity. They'll do it in commercial, so if it's a bit of a large scale development, and one of the questions that I've been asking is, did we scope this out from end to end, from a service user's perspective? Where does somebody go? If you make that part of the conditionality of getting a building warrant, then there must be a market out there.
Somebody to provide
somebody can tap into and get it done. Doesn't seem to be that's the case at the moment. So
there's an interesting point, but where does that leave Joe Bloggs? So say if we're talking, say you or I buy a parcel of land in North Lanarkshire, David, in a lovely wee village or whatever it may be, and we want to start developing our own property. Again, if it's not part of a community growth area, it's not part of these different things, how difficult does that then become? I was speaking to somebody the other week there that bought a parcel of land, wanting to build a house, and the biggest issue they're having all the time is in relation to the planning department. Now, again, if we can enforce on the wee guy continuously, but we don't enforce on the major developers,
or the huge developers,
surely that's completely backward.
I would agree, 100%. It's like, it seems to be that the easier target is the smallest target. And I'm not saying that they go out and deliberately target
I do
individuals.
think your planning officers work hard, but
absolutely.
But I do think as well that the level of expectation is placed on them, because they are the planning enforcement. That is it. Planning enforcement makes part of their remit, and they're already a small team.
Well, I'll be interested to see what I get back with these trees, because if there's a tree enforcement order or whatever it might be called, then I'm going to fully expect that they're going to enforce this. So if there has been any breach of what the planning permissions that were given and consents that was there for that particular development, then I fully expect them to do something about it, because why wouldn't they?
Do you think anybody will come up with a budget proposal to properly fund our planning department? Do you think we'll see a dedicated enforcement team in Thursday's budget?
I think not.
I don't think so.
I was excited.
I think long and hard about that one, but haven't done so. I think the answer's no.
It's unlikely.
I was extremely excited and you killed my dream.
Sorry,
ladies and gentlemen, and those good folk on TikTok, thank you very much for joining us. And before we do go, I would advise everybody who's been listening and viewing in the night, try and get the opportunity to watch the full council meeting on Thursday at 4 p.m. To be honest with you, I think it's going to last no more than an hour. I think that's fair to assume, because they all seem absolutely agreed a 10% council tax rise. So unfortunately, I think that is potentially where it's going. And Woody, what's your prediction for timescales? I always like a prediction, because if you recall, we went to that full council that one time that lasted how long?
8 minutes. 8 minutes.
8 minutes.
I think it was 8 minutes.
8 minutes for a full council meeting. That's the level of debate taking place in North Lanarkshire.
Shameful.
But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us, and thank you as always to my co-host Gerry Brennan and to my good friend David Crichton, who
Thank you, David.
Very
on
welcome,
TikTok
very welcome, guys.
like the aged versions are right, said Fred. Anyway, have a lovely evening. Take care.
Go to the end of the point of order to see whether or not.
I've got the point of orders in front of me, Councillor Lennon. Also,
No,
I don't
but
need
allow
a
me to make the
I don't
point
need
of
a-
order.
Councillor Lennon, see if we're going to have a conversation that requires you
Provost
to be quiet
46.
and me to speak.
Provost,
It doesn't require you to
standing
speak
order
over me.
46.
This isn't your show,
I
Councillor
never asked
Lennon.
for
This is
that,
a
Provost.
members' meeting.